Hello, this is Ruth Polston from The Life That Wins. And today we're going to talk about something good, okay? Today I want to talk to you about some people who had a mind to work. Now, you know, yeah, that's my phone. Get it if you can.
Up. That's the first time that's done that.
What's that?
That it ringed out there.
It rang out here too.
Yeah.
Huh.
I could hear it ring out here, Ruth Ann.
Really?
I think what I'm going to do is just
No, that isn't the one. That goes up there.
well, that's this. That's your
Oh,
charger.
oh, okay.
I'm just going to plug it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, gotta go back now. Go on. Well, this is Ruth Ann Polston from The Life That Wins again, and today I want to talk to you about the people that had a mind to work. You know, a lot of people in God's kingdom like to work, but then there's some that just would like to go around for the ride. But the one that I talk to you today, that's not true. And this takes place starts in a place called Persia, okay? Nehemiah was one of the misplaced persons. And you know that the people of Israel had been carried off to Babylon. Well, then after 70 years, they were allowed to come back. And when they came back, they were so disheveled, and they really didn't have any cohesiveness now. And they were pretty depressed. There was no temple. There was no walls around the temple, and the whole ground was just littered with rubble and stone rubble. And so here is our hero today, Nehemiah. He is over at Shushan, the palace. That's a long ways away. Well, anyway, he has a job working for the king, Xerxes. And, you know, he was a cupbearer. Now, in those days, there was a job. The job was to keep the king happy. Well, he loved his job, and he made good money at it, and he was very content until one day there were some people that came by from Jerusalem, and he was happy to see some people from his home place. So he said, well, what's going on back home in Jerusalem? They said, well, it's not good. Oh, it's not good? No, it's not good. He said the walls are down, and the people are depressed, and they just don't know which way to go. And you say the walls are down completely? Yep, just a pile of rubble. He said, my, that's really something. Well, they went on their way. But after that, and it was the job of a cupbearer to keep the king happy, that his face, it was so sad, he couldn't bring himself to be happy. And so the king kept watching him, and he said, "Is something wrong?" "Oh," he said, "I'm sad." And he said, why are you sad?" And then he told him, he's got back in my country, everything is just a mess. And he said, "Well, what can I do?" He said, "You could give me permission, and I would go back and I'd help them build the wall." Well, he said, "That's an ambitious thought." He said, "When would you return?" So he gave him a time when he would return. And he said, "I'll help you with that. I'll give you horses and soldiers that'll protect you on the way. I'll give you a lot of material, beams and things like that you're going to need." And he said, "Well, thank you. And he said, "And I'm going to give you letters of permission, because sometimes not everybody wants you to build a wall." "Oh, thank you very much." So he came. When he arrived in the city, it was worse than he thought. So he waited for 3 days, and then he went out at night and took just a few men with him, and he surveyed the situation. And as he did, he began to think, "Now let's see, Lord, do you have a plan for me?" And so the Lord began to give him a plan about what he could do. Well, from that point on then, after he got a plan, and you see, when God has a need and he's got a man, he gives the man a plan. So he began to see what he could do. There had to be 12 gates, so he had to get men for each gate. They had to need men that knew how to put bolts and put brackets and things to hold those gates together. And it would be some of them that would know how to work stones, because they were all stones in the rubble. And so he waited for about 3 days. And finally he began to have the men to begin to do the gates first. Okay, the gates. And then he gathered all the people together and told them what he had in mind. And he said, "We're back." He said, "We're back to stay. Now," he said, "I want you to finish the wall." "Us?" "Yes." He said, "You." Now he said, "I've got a plan for it." And he said, "I've got bricklayers, stone layers, and so you raise your hand, whatever you can do." And so the men began to respond from here. And pretty soon, they had stone layers, the bricklayers, they had all kinds of people that were ready to go. And the Bible said the people had a mind to work. And so they were together on it. And it was great. Well, they began to work. And they began to see just a foundation. And pretty soon, it got a little bit higher and higher, and all of a sudden they got opposition. Now, because you have God's mind doesn't mean that you won't have opposition. It probably means that you will have. And did they ever get opposition? Because while they had been gone, the enemy had moved in, and their names were Tobiah and let's see, what was it, Tobiah? And there was another one. But anyway, that they were enemies of Israel, and they had no backing at all that would relate them, and they had gotten into being the governor and the people that were in charge. So then they had a meeting. They said, "We've been watching these Jews," and he said, "They're beginning to congregate, and we don't like the looks of it. What do you think we ought to do?" Now, he said they tried a number of different things. They tried threatening. They tried reasoning. "Just come down and talk to us. We'll talk things over." And they said, "Who should such a man as I?" I mean, they just gave them the old Jew and scriptural answers, and they just didn't know what to do with them, but they had made up their minds they were going to stop this work. So when they recognized that, he said, you know what? Now I've got to get officers. I got to get men that know how to fight. So now he begins to get people that would hold the spears, and they'd stay on job. There were about half of them that were doing that, and there were half of them that were building on the wall. So it had absorbed quite a few people. And so here are the men, and they stood all day. And he said, at night, I want you to go back. And the Bible said some of them didn't even take off their clothes for the washing. It was a night and day until they would get the wall built. Big job. It took 52 days to do it, with thousands of people put to work. One day, he said, you know, I think I'm going to put people on the wall. The wall was about half up at that time, and they were feeling encouraged. However, the people had worked so hard. They were from the inside, they began to feel, we can't do this. We're tired. We have worked hard. And so here's the encourager. That's part of leadership. He got right under them and he said, don't faint now. He said, we haven't finished the wall, and what we started for God, we're going to finish it. So he encouraged them. They went back to work. And this time, he put them to work by families. And so here was part of the family. And part of them would hold a weapon if they were old enough. If they weren't, they would find something to do for the children that they could do. And over here, the parents would do this. And you know, that was a very wise thing, because people will fight very hard for their families. And so they kept building, building, and building. And finally, one day, it was finished. Well, it was a sad day for Tobiah and the governor. So they said, you know, there's only one thing we need to do. He said, we need to kill Nehemiah. You know, that leadership is always the one that's under attack. If they can get the leader, they can pretty well cause whatever you've built up can be torn down. So someone overheard it and took the message. And so they began to put people night and day protecting Nehemiah from being exposed. And they'd used every reason to get him away from his people so that they would just have a crack at him and kill him. But you know, it wasn't working, because all the people fought for him and kept him from their getting to him. Well, after they finished the wall, there was a big conclave, because the people could build a wall. They could work with their hands, but they forgot how to worship. So now he's got to teach them to worship. And he said, well, the first thing is praise. He said, we got to get some singers in here. So they brought in singers. So they brought in instruments. And they had hundreds of people that could sing, hundreds of people that could play on an instrument. And the people, they loved it. And they were singing praises to God, and the temperature of their hearts was just coming up and up and up and up and up. And but then they had kind of intermarried, and they had a lot of things that they had tempered with that were not kosher for the Jewish people. And so someone had even married into Tobiah's family. And so this was not good. And he would not leave one stone unturned. And so he would cast them right out of the fellowship. And he said, we're not having any of that. If you have tempered with another family, He said, it's not to be in the Jewish lineage. Well, after that was over, it had really, really established them in worship. And they looked forward to it. And in fact, the people that heard the songs, and they had houses that they'd built back here, they moved them closer. They sold their houses and got up real close so they could be part of that fellowship and part of the singing and the rejoicing. Well, you know, that might be true collectively many times, but you know, that's true on an individual level too. The enemy studies us. He sees where our weaknesses are, he sees where our strengths are, and he will play on them. He will threaten. Here you tell, let's get reasonable about this. And he'll say, this is too hard for you. And how many things, it's not changed that much. It's the same old tricks, it's the same old brainwashing that the enemy does. And he injects the thought into your mind. And once you get it into your mind, you'll get it on your lips. When you get it with your lips, you've got it. Speak the word, and it's yours. So, individually, that happens just as much as it does collectively. So if you feel like you kind of been off on, I don't know, a vacation or something, when God's told you to build your individual wall, God will have, he's going to prepare a place for us. And he's going to want to know what that wall is like that you have built. Is your name on that wall somewhere? The Bible says that our names are written in heaven. So I want to be sure. My husband and I had a life verse together, and it was like this. I will deliver you from every evil work, and I will preserve you until my heavenly kingdom. That's a wonderful promise for you to take and say, Lord, I'm not home yet, but I don't want to be caught. I don't want to fall in with the Tobias. I don't want to fall somewhere along the way. I want my name written there. Okay. This is my name written there. In the courts bright and fair. In the book of thy kingdom is my name written there. Is my name written there in the courts bright and fair, in the book of thy kingdom is my name written there. Keep building your wall until finally, in the book of your kingdom, you'll be able to say, my name is written there. God bless, and have a great week. Ruth Ann Polston, Like the Winds.